Before we dive into this story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. Now, let's begin. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in Millbrook, a quiet American town where everyone knew their neighbors, or at least thought they did. Officer Sarah Mitchell was finishing her patrol shift when the call came through dispatch. Unit 12, we have a report of 2 children near the abandoned railcar by Riverside Park. Caller said they looked unsupervised. Can you check it out? Sarah reached for her radio. Copy that, en route. She'd responded to calls like this before. Usually kids playing where they shouldn't be. Parents nearby, just out of sight. Nothing serious. She drove toward the industrial area on the edge of town, a forgotten corner where old train tracks ran parallel to the park. Most people walked right past without noticing the rusted rail car half hidden by overgrown bushes. Sarah parked and walked toward it. The metal door hung open at an angle, creaking slightly in the breeze. "Police," she called out. "Anyone in there?" No answer. She stepped inside carefully, letting her eyes adjust to the dim light. And then she saw them. 2 little girls sat in the corner on flattened cardboard. The older one had bright red hair pulled back in a ponytail. She sat perfectly straight, too straight, like she was trying very hard to look proper. In her arms, she held a smaller girl, maybe 3 years old, who leaned limply against her. The older girl was counting under her breath. 68, 69, 70. She stopped when she heard Sarah's footsteps. Sarah's heart sank immediately. These children weren't playing. They were living here. "Hey there," Sarah said gently, crouching down a few feet away. "My name's Sarah. I'm a police officer. Are you okay?" The older girl looked at her with eyes that seemed far too old for her face, guarded, cautious, like she'd learned not to trust easily. "We're fine," she said quietly. Sarah glanced at the younger child. She was pale, her breathing shallow and labored. Her clothes were dirty and too big. Her lips had a faint bluish tint. This child was not fine. This child was very sick. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Sarah asked. "Emily. And this is your sister?" Emily nodded, pulling the little girl closer. "Lily." Sarah's training kicked in immediately. Fever, dehydration, possible respiratory distress. This child needed help, now. "Emily, how long have you 2 been here?" Emily hesitated. "I'm not sure. A few days, I think." "Where are your parents?" Emily's face tightened. She looked down at Lily, brushing a strand of hair from her sister's forehead. When she spoke, her voice trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of words she didn't fully understand. "My mom. She's not here anymore. She got sick and she didn't come back." Sarah felt her chest tighten. "I'm so sorry, honey. What about your dad?" Emily's hands shook slightly as she held Lily. He tried to help when she got sick. When Lily got sick, I mean. But I think he didn't know how." Sarah leaned in slightly. "What happened, Emily?" "He gave her something to make the fever go away, but she got worse." Emily's voice cracked. "And then he said we had to stay here and wait, that he'd come back, but he didn't." Sarah's blood ran cold. A sick child, a father who gave her something, and then disappeared. Every alarm in her head went off. She reached for her radio immediately. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. I need paramedics and child services at the abandoned railcar off Industrial Road immediately. 2 minors, younger one approximately 3 years old, critical condition. Possible medical emergency. Possible abandonment." Emily's eyes went wide with fear. "Are we in trouble?" "No, sweetheart, no, you're not in trouble." Sarah moved closer, keeping her voice calm. "But Lily needs a doctor right away, and I'm going to make sure she gets help." Within minutes, sirens filled the air. Paramedics rushed in with equipment. People from the nearby park began gathering, curious, concerned. A paramedic knelt beside Lily, checking her pulse. Fever of 104, severe dehydration. Breathing is shallow. He looked at his partner. "We need to move now." As they carefully lifted Lily onto a stretcher, Emily tried to follow, panic flooding her face. "I can't leave her. She needs me." "It's okay," the paramedic said gently. "You can come with us." Sarah helped Emily to her feet. The girl was so thin, her clothes hanging loose. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. When was the last time she'd eaten? Slept properly? As the ambulance doors closed, Sarah stood in the doorway of the rail car and looked around. Flattened cardboard for beds, empty water bottles, a small backpack with crackers inside, signs that someone had been living here for days, maybe longer. And all this time, people had been walking past, right past, close enough to see, close enough to help. But no one had stopped. Detective Laura Brennan arrived as the ambulance pulled away. "What do we have, Mitchell?" Sarah gestured to the rail car. "2 girls living here, the younger one's critical. Father's missing." Laura stepped inside and surveyed the scene. Her jaw tightened. "How long?" The older girl said a few days. But looking at this, Sarah shook her head. "Could be longer." Laura looked out at the people gathering. And no one noticed? Sarah thought about all the joggers who ran past this area. The people who cut through here on their way to the park. The neighbors who lived just blocks away. "They were here," Sarah said quietly. "Right here, and no one stopped." The ambulance raced toward Mercy Hospital, sirens wailing through the quiet streets of Millbrook. Emily sat on the bench beside Lily's stretcher, gripping her sister's small hand like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Lily's eyes were half closed. Her breathing came in short, raspy gasps. A paramedic adjusted the oxygen mask over her tiny face. "Hang in there, sweetheart," the paramedic said softly, monitoring her vital signs. "We're almost there." Emily watched every movement with intense focus, the way the paramedic checked the IV, the beeping of the monitor, the rise and fall of Lily's chest. She'd been watching over her sister for so long, it was the only thing she knew how to do. Sarah sat across from them, studying Emily carefully. The girl sat perfectly upright, her back straight, hands folded except for the one holding Lily. Even now, even scared, she was trying to be proper, trying to be good, like she'd practiced this moment. "Emily," Sarah said gently, "I need you to help me understand what happened. Can you do that?" Emily nodded without taking her eyes off Lily. "You said your dad tried to help Lily when she got sick. What did he do?" Emily's voice was quiet, measured, like she was choosing each word very carefully. "He said she had a fever, a really bad one, and we didn't have money to go to the doctor. So what did he do? He looked things up. On his phone, he found something that was supposed to help." Emily paused. "He mixed things together, in a cup. It smelled bad." Sarah kept her voice calm even as her chest tightened. "Do you know what was in it?" Emily shook her head. "He just said it would make her better, but when she drank it, she started crying. Really hard. She said her throat hurt. And then what happened? She got worse. She couldn't stop coughing. Dad got really scared. He kept saying, 'I'm sorry, over and over." Emily's voice trembled. "And then he said we had to go to the rail car, that we had to wait there, that he'd figure it out and come back." "When was that?" "I don't know exactly. 3 days ago, maybe 4. I stopped counting." Sarah felt something break inside her. 3 or 4 days. These children had been alone, Lily getting sicker by the hour, while Emily tried desperately to keep her alive. "Emily, did your dad say where he was going?" "No, he just left. He told us to wait, to not talk to anyone, that he'd come back." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "But he didn't come back, and Lily kept getting worse, and I didn't know what to do." The ambulance pulled into the hospital. The back doors flew open. Medical staff rushed Lily inside on the stretcher. Emily ran alongside, refusing to let go of her hand. In the emergency room, doctors swarmed around Lily. Dr. Pemberton, the head pediatrician, took charge immediately. Female, approximately 3 years old. High fever, severe dehydration, respiratory distress. Possible ingestion of unknown substance. He examined Lily quickly, his expression growing more serious. "Get me a full tox screen, chest x-ray, blood work. Page the pediatric ICU." A nurse gently pulled Emily aside. "Honey, the doctors need space to work. You can watch from right here, okay?" Emily pressed herself against the observation window, her small hands flat against the glass. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just watched with that same intense focus. Sarah stood beside her. She pulled out her phone and called Child Services. "This is Officer Mitchell. I need immediate response at Mercy Hospital. 2 minors, no guardian present. Younger child critical. Father missing. Last seen approximately 3 to 4 days ago." She paused, watching Emily's reflection in the glass. "And I need someone who understands that this little girl has been trying to save her sister all by herself." Margaret Hayes arrived within 30 minutes. She was in her 50s, with kind but sharp eyes, someone who'd seen too many cases like this. "Officer Mitchell?" Sarah turned. "That's Emily Bennett. Her sister Lily is in there. Mother deceased. Father missing." Margaret looked at Emily. Small, exhausted, still pressed against that window. Her heart broke. "What are we dealing with?" "A family that fell apart," Sarah said quietly, "and a 10-year-old who tried to hold it together alone." Margaret approached Emily gently. "Hi, Emily. My name is Margaret. I'm here to help you and Lily." Emily didn't take her eyes off the window. "Is she going to be okay?" "The doctors are doing everything they can." "I tried to keep her safe," Emily whispered. "I gave her water. I kept her warm. I tried." Margaret knelt beside her. "I know you did, sweetheart, and you did an amazing job, but now it's time to let the adults help." Emily finally looked at her, tears streaming down her face. "Everyone keeps asking what my dad did, but nobody's asking why we needed help in the first place." The words hit Margaret like a punch to the chest. Because Emily was absolutely right. Everyone wanted to know who did this. But no one was asking how a family could collapse so completely that a 10-year-old became the only thing standing between her sister and death. Within 2 hours, the abandoned railcar had become a crime scene. Yellow tape stretched across the entrance. Police officers moved through the area, photographing evidence, collecting items, the cardboard, the empty bottles, the small backpack with stale crackers inside. News vans lined Industrial Road, their cameras pointed at the rusted metal car. And people, dozens of them, gathered behind the tape, watching, whispering, pulling out their phones. Detective Laura Brennan stood in the doorway of the rail car, surveying the scene with sharp eyes. She'd worked hundreds of cases, but something about this one already felt different. Officer Carter approached with his notepad. "Detective, I've started canvassing the area. You're going to want to hear this." "What did you find?" "At least 8 people recognized the girls when I showed them photos. They'd seen them around here before." Laura's jaw tightened. "And none of them reported it?" "No, ma'am. Most said they figured the kids were just playing, that their parents were nearby." Laura looked around, at the park just beyond the trees, at the walking path that ran right past this spot, at the houses visible in the distance. "How many people walk through here every day?" "Hundreds. It's a shortcut to the park. Joggers use it. Dog walkers. Families." Laura knelt down and examined the cardboard where the girls had been sitting. It was worn, compressed from days of use. There were juice stains, a child's drawing in crayon on the metal wall. These children hadn't just been here for a few hours. They'd been living here, in plain sight. "I want everyone who was in this area over the past week interviewed," Laura ordered. "I want to know who saw what and when." As officers began questioning witnesses, the confessions started. An older man stepped forward. "I jog past here every morning. I think I saw those girls a few days ago. The older one was giving something to the younger one. Food, I think." "Did you stop to ask if they were okay?" The man looked down. "No, I figured someone was watching them. A woman with a dog. I walk through here twice a day. I remember seeing the red-haired girl. She looked tired. But I thought maybe she was just waiting for someone." "Did you speak to her?" "No, I was in a hurry. A teenager on a bicycle. I saw them yesterday, I think. The little one looked really sick, but I assumed their parents were around somewhere." One by one, people came forward with the same story. They'd seen, they'd noticed, they'd wondered, but they'd all kept walking. An older woman approached the tape, her face pale, her hands trembling. "I walked right past them this morning. The older girl was counting. I heard her. She looked right at me. Her voice cracked. And I thought, someone must be taking care of them. Someone responsible is probably nearby. She covered her mouth, tears running down her cheeks. But there wasn't anyone, and I just walked away. Detective Brennan listened to each confession without judgment, but something was building inside her. Not anger, but a deep, uncomfortable understanding. She turned to Officer Carter. "You know what I'm seeing here?" "What's that?" "A dozen people who saw 2 children in distress, and every single one of them assumed someone else would handle it." Carter looked at the crowd. "It's easier that way, isn't it? To believe someone else is responsible." Laura's phone buzzed. It was Margaret from the hospital. "Laura, it's Margaret. Lily stable but critical. Severe pneumonia, dehydration, malnutrition. And there are chemical burns in her esophagus. Whatever the father gave her was highly acidic." Laura closed her eyes briefly. "Will she recover?" "The doctors think so. But if Emily hadn't been caring for her these past few days—" Margaret didn't finish the sentence. "What about Emily? Exhausted, malnourished, and carrying more guilt than any child should ever have to carry." Laura looked back at the rail car. "Margaret, I'm standing here listening to people confess that they saw these girls and did nothing. Every single one of them has the same excuse. They thought someone else was handling it." There was a pause on the line. "That phrase," Margaret said quietly. "Someone must be taking care of it. I've heard it 1,000 times. It's how families fall through every crack in the system." Laura watched as another witness came forward. A middle-aged man who admitted he'd seen the girls 3 times over the past week. "We're not just looking for the father," Laura said. "We're looking at an entire community that walked past 2 children in crisis and did nothing. Are you going to tell them that? I think they're starting to figure it out themselves." As the sun began to set, someone in the crowd murmured, almost like an excuse, almost like a prayer. Someone must have been taking care of them. But no one had been. Sarah Mitchell stood at the edge of the scene, watching it all unfold. She thought about every person who'd walked this path, every jogger, every dog walker, every neighbor. They were here, Sarah thought, right here in the open, and everyone just assumed someone else was watching, until it was almost too late. 1 year earlier. The Bennett apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms in an old building on the east side of Millbrook. The paint was peeling in places, and the heater didn't always work, but it was home. On a Saturday morning, sunlight streamed through the kitchen window. The smell of pancakes filled the air. A child's laughter echoed off the walls. Rebecca Bennett stood at the stove, her red hair, the same vibrant shade as her daughter's, tied back in a messy bun. She hummed softly as she flipped pancakes, a slight smile on her tired but content face. Emily sat at the small table, coloring in a workbook. Lily was in her high chair, banging a spoon against the tray and giggling. "Almost ready," Rebecca said, sliding pancakes onto plates. "Emily, can you get the syrup, honey?" Emily jumped up. "Can I have chocolate chips on mine?" "Just a few." Rebecca winked. David walked in from the bedroom pulling on his work jacket. He looked different then, younger, less worn. There was light in his eyes. He kissed Rebecca on the cheek. "Smells amazing. Sit. Eat. You've got 20 minutes before your shift." David sat down next to Emily and gently tapped Lily's nose. "How's my little troublemaker?" Lily squealed with delight, reaching for him. For that moment, everything was perfectly, beautifully ordinary. Rebecca knew exactly when Lily would wake up at night. She knew which drawer held the children's medicine. She knew Emily's teacher's name, Lily's favorite stuffed animal, how to stretch $20 into a week's worth of groceries. Rebecca held the invisible map of their family, all the small, essential knowledge that kept everything running smoothly. And when she got sick, she took that map with her. It started with a cough, just a small one. "It's nothing," Rebecca insisted when David suggested she see a doctor. "Just a cold. I'll be fine." But it wasn't nothing. Within 2 weeks, the cough got worse. She couldn't catch her breath. She started missing work. One morning, David found her sitting on the edge of the bed, unable to stand, gasping for air. "We're going to the hospital," he said, fear sharp in his voice. "David, we can't afford—" "I don't care, we're going now." At the emergency room, doctors admitted her immediately. Pneumonia. Severe. They kept her for observation, then treatment, then longer still. Emily and Grace stayed with Mrs. Patterson, their neighbor, a kind woman who did her best. But Emily lay awake every night in a strange bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering when Mama would come home. David tried to hold everything together. He worked double shifts. He visited the hospital every evening. He paid bills with money he didn't have. The medical costs piled up. Even with insurance, the bills were staggering. David started missing work to be at Rebecca's bedside. His boss was understanding at first, then less so. "I'm sorry, David. We need people we can count on. If you can't be here consistently—" "I'll be here, I promise." But he couldn't be everywhere at once. 3 weeks after Rebecca was admitted, David came home alone. Emily was sitting on Mrs. Patterson's couch when he walked in. She took one look at his face, pale, hollow, broken, and she knew. "Daddy," she whispered. David sank to the floor and pulled her into his arms. He couldn't speak. He just held her while his whole body shook with silent sobs. Lily didn't understand. She kept asking, "Where's Mama? When is Mama coming home?" Emily looked at her father's devastated face and understood something that would change her forever. Mama wasn't coming home. Not ever. The funeral was quiet. A few neighbors came, some of David's co-workers. The girls sat in the front row, Lily on David's lap, Emily holding his hand. David stared at the casket and felt the world collapse around him. How do I do this alone? How do I be both of us? He didn't have an answer. After the funeral, David sat in the dark living room for hours. Days. He stopped answering his phone, stopped opening mail, stopped doing much of anything except staring at the walls. Emily learned quickly. She made sandwiches for Lily. She turned on cartoons to keep her quiet. She didn't ask Daddy for things anymore because he didn't seem to hear. The eviction notice came 2 months later. David held it in his trembling hands, reading the same words over and over, but they wouldn't make sense. "We'll figure it out," he said to Emily, his voice hollow. "We'll find somewhere else." But there was nowhere else. No family nearby, no savings left, no job. He'd been let go weeks ago and hadn't told anyone. Rebecca had known how to ask for help. She'd known which agencies to call, which forms to fill out, which neighbors to lean on. But Rebecca was gone. And David didn't know how to navigate a world without her. The scene fades. David sitting alone in the empty apartment after everyone left. Rebecca's coffee mug still on the counter, her sweater still on the chair. Her map, gone forever, 4 months after Rebecca's death. David sat in his car in a grocery store parking lot, staring at the final eviction notice. The paper shook in his hands. "You have 48 hours to vacate the premises." In the back seat, Emily had made a small nest of blankets for herself and Lily. Lily was asleep, her thumb in her mouth. Emily was awake, watching her father with worried eyes. "Daddy, are we going inside?" David didn't answer immediately. His mind felt like fog, thick and empty. He'd stopped looking for work weeks ago, couldn't focus, couldn't remember appointments. Some days he forgot what day it was. "Not today, sweetheart. But we need food." David looked at the crumpled bills in the cup holder. $7, that was all. "Tomorrow," he said quietly. "We'll go tomorrow." But tomorrow never came. When the sheriff arrived to enforce the eviction, David was sitting on the floor of the empty apartment surrounded by boxes he hadn't packed. "Mr. Bennett, I'm sorry, but you need to leave now." David stood slowly, moving like his body weighed 1,000 pounds. He gathered what little they had, 2 duffel bags, some clothes, Lily's stuffed rabbit. "Where will you go?" the sheriff asked, not unkindly. David didn't answer because he didn't know. They went to a shelter on the west side. It had strict rules. No staying during the day, 2-week maximum, check in by 7 p.m. or lose your bed. David tried, but some days he'd lose track of time completely. He'd sit on a bench somewhere, staring at nothing, unable to move. Emily became the one who watched the clock, who made sure they arrived on time, who kept Lily quiet so they wouldn't get in trouble. She was 10 years old, but she'd learned to think like someone much older. One night, they were turned away. David had been late, forgot where he was supposed to be, forgot what time it was. "I'm sorry, Mr. Bennett," the coordinator said. "Rules are rules. We gave your beds to another family." David stood there holding Lily, Emily beside him. He wanted to argue, to explain, but no words came. They walked to the industrial area near Riverside Park. David found the abandoned rail car, rusted but dry. "We'll stay here tonight," he told the girls, "just until I figure something out." But one night became 2, then 3, then a week. Emily found water at a public fountain. She bought bread with the few dollars David occasionally gave her. She kept Lily as clean as possible. She never complained, never cried where anyone could see. Then Lily got sick. It started with a cough, then a fever, then she stopped eating. Emily begged her father, "Daddy, she needs a doctor." David's eyes were wild, panicked. "We can't. They'll take you away. I can't lose you too." "But she's really sick." "I'll fix it," David said desperately. "I'll fix it." He searched on his dying phone. Home remedies, child fever, natural pneumonia cure. He found websites promising easy solutions. He bought vinegar, honey, cayenne at a dollar store. Mixed them following bad advice. "Lily, baby, drink this," he whispered. "It'll help." Lily took a sip and screamed. It burned. Over 2 days, Lily got worse, stopped crying, stopped moving. David sat against the railcar wall, staring at nothing. His mind was breaking. "I should have asked for help, but I thought I could handle it just one more day." And then, on the 3rd morning, his mind simply shut down. He stood, looked at his daughters, and walked away. Not planned, not decided. His body just moved while his mind went somewhere else. Emily woke up alone. "Daddy?" But he was gone. 3 days after David disappeared, Emily sat in a quiet room at Mercy Hospital. The walls were pale yellow. There was a box of tissues on the table she hadn't touched. A woman sat across from her, Margaret Hayes, with kind eyes and a calm voice. "Emily," Margaret said gently, "I know you've answered a lot of questions already, but I need to understand what happened so we can help you and Lily. Is that okay?" Emily nodded, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Even now, she sat perfectly straight. "Tell me about what your dad gave Lily. Do you remember?" Emily's voice was quiet, careful, like she was choosing each word with great precision. "He said she had a really bad fever, and he looked things up on his phone. He said he found something that would help." "What did he give her?" "He mixed things together, in a cup. It smelled really strong. Like vinegar, I think, and something spicy." Margaret wrote carefully, keeping her expression neutral. "And what happened when Lily drank it?" "She started crying, really, really hard. She said it hurt. Her throat hurt." Emily's voice wavered. "Dad got scared. He kept saying, 'I'm sorry, I'm sorry.' But he didn't know what else to do. Did he try to give her more? No. She wouldn't drink it. So he stopped." Margaret set her pen down. "Emily, did your dad ever try to hurt you or Lily on purpose?" Emily looked confused. "No. He was trying to help. He said we couldn't go to the hospital because it cost too much money. And because—" She paused. "Because he was scared they'd take us away from him." Each word Emily spoke was being weighed by adults who already expected the worst. Not because Emily was lying, but because her innocent words sounded darker than the truth behind them. "When did your dad leave?" 3 days ago. Or maybe 4. I'm not sure anymore." Emily looked down. "He said he needed to go find help, that we should wait in the rail car, that he'd come back. What did you do while you waited?" "I tried to take care of Lily. I gave her water from the fountain. I kept her warm with our blankets. I sang to her when she cried." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "But she kept getting sicker, and I didn't know what to do. I kept thinking someone would see us. Someone would help. But people just walked past." Margaret leaned forward slightly. Emily, you did everything you possibly could, more than any 10-year-old should ever have to do. But it wasn't enough. That's not your fault, sweetheart. You were a child trying to survive an impossible situation. Emily finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. Everyone keeps asking what Daddy did wrong, but nobody's asking why we were there in the first place, why we didn't have a home, why Mama died and nobody helped us after. The words hit Margaret like a freight train. Because Emily was absolutely right. Everyone wanted to know who caused this, but no one was asking how a family could collapse so completely that a 10-year-old became the only thing standing between her sister and death. You're right, Margaret said quietly. That is the important question. And I promise you we're going to look at all of it. Not just what your dad did, but everything that led to this moment. Are you going to take us away? Put us in different places? Right now, you and Lily need to be somewhere safe while she gets better. That might mean staying with a foster family for a little while. But we'll do everything we can to keep you together. I can't leave Lily. She needs me. I know, and we'll make sure you can see her every day. There was a knock on the door. Officer Sarah Mitchell stepped in. Margaret, can I speak with you for a moment? Margaret excused herself and stepped into the hallway. We tracked David's phone, Sarah said. Last ping was at a bus station 60 miles north. We're coordinating with state police. Do you think he's dangerous? No, I think he's broken. Sarah looked back through the window at Emily. That little girl still loves her father, even after everything. Children have an incredible capacity for love, Margaret said. Sometimes more than they should have to carry. The question is, what happens when we find him? Margaret sighed. Legally, he's facing serious charges: medical neglect, child endangerment, abandonment. But punishing him doesn't answer what Emily just said in there. It doesn't fix why this family fell through every safety net we're supposed to have. Sarah crossed her arms. So what are we really doing here? Finding someone to blame or fixing a system? I don't know yet, Margaret said, but I'm starting to think we need to do both. Inside the room, Emily had finally picked up a tissue. She wiped her eyes carefully, then folded it and placed it neatly on the table. Even now, even broken, she was trying to be good, trying not to make a mess, trying not to be a burden. Margaret returned and sat back down. Emily, I want you to understand something very important. What happened to you and Lily? It wasn't just your father's failure. Emily looked up. A lot of people failed you, and we're going to make sure that doesn't happen to anyone else. Detective Laura Brennan sat at her desk, reviewing the thin file on David Bennett. His driver's license photo showed a man from 2 years ago. Before loss, before collapse, before everything fell apart. She picked up her phone. This is Detective Brennan. I need an expanded search for David Bennett. Last known location, northbound bus station. Extend radius to 100 miles. Subject is likely experiencing severe mental health crisis. Approach with care, not force. She hung up and turned to Officer Carter, who just returned with witness statements. What did you find? Carter opened his notepad. David Bennett, 38. Wife Rebecca died 10 months ago from pneumonia. Medical bills bankrupted them. Lost his job 6 months ago. Evicted 4 months ago. After that, nothing. They vanished. Family? Friends? Rebecca's parents are deceased. David's family is out of state. He hasn't contacted them in over a year. Neighbors said he kept to himself after his wife died. No one reached out. Laura shook her head. So he was completely isolated. Completely. And here's the thing, Emily was enrolled at Lincoln Elementary. When she stopped showing up, the school filed a report with the district. It got buried in paperwork. No one ever followed up. So they disappeared and nobody noticed. Not nobody, Carter corrected. People noticed. They just assumed someone else was handling it. Laura pulled up the case timeline on her computer. A pattern emerged. Dozens of small moments where someone could have intervened, and didn't. Her phone rang. It was Dr. Pemberton. Detective, I'm sending over Lily's full medical evaluation. You need to see this. What did you find? The substance David gave her caused chemical burns and triggered a severe reaction. But that's not what nearly killed her. Laura's chest tightened. What do you mean? Lily has been suffering from chronic malnutrition, dehydration, and untreated pneumonia for weeks, possibly months. The homemade remedy was dangerous, but it was just the final crisis. This child was already dying slowly. Jesus. I'm documenting this clearly. This child didn't get sick in one day. She got sick slowly, over weeks and months while living in plain sight. Laura thanked him and hung up. She stared at her caseboard, photos of Emily and Lily, the rail car, witness statements. This wasn't one bad decision. This was a family falling apart in slow motion while the world walked past. Her partner, Detective Mike Reyes, entered. Got something. David was spotted at a homeless shelter 40 miles west. Staff said he seemed confused, barely spoke. When? This morning. He's still there. Laura grabbed her coat. Let's go. As they drove, Reyes spoke quietly. You know what bothers me about this case? What? Everyone wants to know who's responsible. But the answer isn't one person. It's all of us. Laura glanced at him. The neighbors who saw them struggling, Reyes continued. The school that didn't follow up. The people who walked past that rail car every single day and assumed someone else was watching. Laura thought about Sarah's words. They were here, and no one stopped. Yeah, she said quietly. You're right. They arrived at the shelter, a simple building with peeling paint and a hand-painted sign. All are welcome. Inside, the coordinator led them to a small room. He's been here 4 days. Barely eats, barely sleeps, just sits. Laura entered slowly. David Bennett sat on a cot, hunched over, head in his hands. He was thinner than his photo, unshaven, wearing clothes that hadn't been washed in weeks. Mr. Bennett? Laura said gently. David looked up slowly. His eyes were hollow, empty, like someone who'd already left this world. I'm Detective Brennan. I need you to come with me. David's voice was barely a whisper. Are my daughters alive? Yes, they're safe. Lily's in the hospital, but she's going to be okay. David collapsed forward, sobbing. Deep, broken sounds. Laura let him cry. Then she spoke. David, I need you to stand up. You're under arrest for child endangerment and abandonment. David didn't resist. He simply stood, holding out his hands. As Laura placed handcuffs on him, David whispered, I should have asked for help. I kept thinking I could handle it. Just one more day. By the next morning, the story had spread across Millbrook and beyond. 2 sisters found an abandoned rail car, father arrested after days-long search. Community asks, how did this happen? At the corner cafe on Main Street, people gathered around the television mounted on the wall. The morning news showed footage of the rail car, the hospital, David being led away in handcuffs. I can't believe this happened here, one woman said, shaking her head. In our town. How could a father just abandon his children like that? Another added. An older man in the corner spoke quietly. Did any of us know they needed help? The cafe went silent. I'm just saying, he continued, if they were living in that rail car for days, someone must have seen them. A younger woman shifted uncomfortably. Well, you can't just approach strangers. You don't know how they'll react. They were children, the old man said, sitting alone. The silence that followed was heavy. Online, the comment sections exploded with opinions. Lock him up and throw away the key. He lost his wife. He was grieving. Where was the support? Grief doesn't excuse putting your child in danger. Where were the neighbors, the teachers? Why didn't anyone help before it got this bad? At Mercy Hospital, Emily sat beside Lily's bed. Lily was awake now, her color better, breathing easier. Tubes and monitors still surrounded her, but she looked more like a child and less like a ghost. Emmy? Lily whispered. Yeah, Lil. Where's Daddy? Emily's throat tightened. He's getting help. Grown-up help. Is he coming back? I don't know. Lily's eyes filled with tears. I want Mama. Emily climbed carefully onto the bed and held her sister close. I know, me too. A nurse came in to check Lily's vitals. She smiled warmly. You two are brave girls. Emily didn't feel brave. She felt tired and confused. and angry at a world that seemed to notice them only after everything had already fallen apart. Down the hall, Margaret Hayes was on the phone with the foster care coordinator, arranging temporary placement. The family was experienced, kind, willing to take both girls once Lily was released. But Emily would have to go there soon, without Lily, while her sister recovered. Margaret hated this part. Separating siblings always felt like another small tragedy. Sarah Mitchell arrived at the hospital still in uniform. She found Emily in Lily's room and knocked gently. "Hey, Emily, mind if I come in?" Emily shook her head. Sarah sat down. "I wanted to check on you. See how you're doing." "I'm okay. You know, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to be angry or sad or confused." Emily looked at her hands. "Everyone thinks my dad is bad." Sarah chose her words carefully. "People are trying to understand what happened. And sometimes when scary things happen, people want someone to blame. But he wasn't trying to hurt us. He was just lost." "I know." Sarah paused. "Emily, can I tell you something?" Emily nodded. "When I found you and Lily, I kept thinking about all the people who must have walked past that rail car. People who saw you but didn't stop. And I realized, your dad made serious mistakes. But he wasn't the only one who failed you." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Then why is everyone only mad at him?" "Because it's easier to blame one person than to admit we all could have done better." Emily wiped her eyes. "I just want things to be normal again. But I don't even remember what normal feels like." Sarah felt her own throat tighten. "I know, sweetheart, but here's what I can promise you. There are people now who are going to make sure you and Lily are safe. And that's a start." Emily nodded slowly, but the sadness in her eyes didn't lift. Outside, the world kept spinning. People kept debating, and everyone kept asking the same question. How did this happen? But very few were asking the harder one. What could I have done differently? Dr. Richard Pemberton had been a pediatrician for 28 years. He'd treated thousands of children, broken bones, infections, chronic illnesses. But Lily Bennett's case troubled him in a way few others had. He sat in his office reviewing her complete medical workup one more time. The results painted a picture that went far beyond one dangerous mixture. Lily was severely malnourished. Her weight was dangerously low for her age. She had untreated ear infections, dental decay from lack of care, and signs of chronic vitamin deficiency. Her immune system was severely compromised. Blood tests showed prolonged dehydration. And yes, there were chemical burns in her throat from what her father had given her. But that mixture hadn't nearly killed her. It had just revealed what was already happening. Dr. Pemberton picked up the phone and called Margaret Hayes. "Ms. Hayes, this is Dr. Pemberton. I've completed Lily's full evaluation, and I need to discuss the findings with you." "Of course, doctor. What did you find?" "The substance David Bennett gave his daughter was dangerous and caused immediate harm. But it's not the primary issue." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Lily has been systematically neglected for months. Malnutrition, untreated infections, lack of any medical intervention. This child was already in crisis long before her father gave her that mixture." Margaret closed her eyes. "So the mixture was just the final breaking point." "Exactly. What I'm documenting is the result of prolonged poverty, homelessness, and complete absence of care. If Lily had received proper medical attention weeks ago, she never would have been this sick. But they didn't have access to care." "I know. And that's what makes this so heartbreaking." Dr. Pemberton looked at his notes. "I'm writing a formal statement for the court. I want to make sure they understand this clearly." "What will it say?" Dr. Pemberton read from his draft. "This child did not get sick in one day. She got sick slowly over weeks and months while living in plain sight. This was not an accident. She was becoming invisible day after day." The line went quiet. "That's powerful, doctor," Margaret said softly. "It's the truth, and I think people need to hear it." After hanging up, Dr. Pemberton walked down to Lily's room. Emily was there, as always, sitting in the chair beside her sister's bed. "How's our patient today?" he asked gently. "Better," Emily said. "She ate some applesauce this morning." Dr. Pemberton smiled. That's wonderful progress. He checked Lily's chart, then sat down. Emily, I want you to know, your sister is going to be okay. She's getting stronger every day. Because of the medicine you're giving her? Yes, but also because of you. You kept her safe when things were very hard. Emily looked down. I didn't keep her safe enough. You did everything a 10-year-old could possibly do. More than most adults could have managed. He paused. What happened to Lily wasn't your fault, and it wasn't entirely your father's fault either. Emily looked up, surprised. Your sister got sick because your family didn't have what they needed. Food, shelter, medical care. Those are things children should never have to worry about. But somehow, your family slipped through every safety net. So who's responsible? Dr. Pemberton considered the question carefully. I think a lot of people share that responsibility, including those of us whose job it is to catch families before they fall this far. He stood to leave, then turned back. Emily, when people ask what happened to Lily, the easy answer is to blame one person. But the real answer is much more complicated. After he left, Emily looked at Lily, who was sleeping peacefully now, her breathing steady and clear. For the first time in weeks, Lily looked like a child again, not a sick, frightened shadow. Emily thought about what Dr. Pemberton said, about safety nets, about people whose job it was to help. She remembered sitting in that rail car watching people walk past. Dozens of them, every single day. And she realized her father had failed them, but so had everyone else. Detective Laura Brennan and Officer Reyes sat across from David Bennett in the interrogation room at Millbrook Police Station. David looked smaller somehow, thinner, older, like a man who'd aged years in just days. A public defender sat beside him, a young woman named Rachel Torres who'd been assigned to his case that morning. Laura turned on the recorder. Mr. Bennett, do you understand why you're here? David nodded slowly. My daughters, I left them. Yes, I need you to tell me in your own words what happened. David's hands trembled on the table. I don't even know where to start. Start with your wife, Rebecca. At the mention of her name, David's eyes filled with tears. Rebecca was everything. She knew how to keep us all together. When she got sick, I tried. I really tried. But I didn't know how to do it without her. What happened after she died? I fell apart. I couldn't think straight. I lost my job, then our apartment. I kept telling myself I'd fix it, that I just needed one more day to figure things out. His voice broke, but that day never came. Tell me about Lily getting sick. David covered his face with his hands. She started coughing. Then the fever came. I knew she needed a doctor, but I didn't have money, and I was so scared. Scared they'd take my girls away if they knew we were homeless. So what did you do? I looked online. I found these websites that said there were natural remedies, that you didn't need doctors, that this mixture would cure pneumonia. He sobbed. I was desperate. I thought I was helping her. What was in the mixture? Vinegar, honey, cayenne pepper. I followed the instructions exactly. But when Lily drank it, he couldn't continue. Laura waited. She screamed, David finally said. She screamed like I was killing her. And I realized what I'd done. I'd hurt my own daughter trying to save her. What happened after that? David's voice became distant, hollow. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Everything just broke inside me. I told the girls to wait in the rail car, that I'd figure it out and come back. But when I started walking, I kept walking. I don't even remember deciding to leave. My mind just shut down. Rachel Torres spoke up. Detective, my client clearly experienced a severe dissociative episode triggered by extreme stress and untreated mental illness. Laura nodded. I can see that. But Mr. Bennett, you left 2 children alone, one of them critically ill, for 4 days. Do you understand how serious that is? Yes. David looked at her with hollow eyes. I understand. And I'll never forgive myself. Do you want to see your daughters? David's face crumpled. More than anything. But I don't. I don't deserve to. That's not for you to decide right now, Laura said. Mr. Bennett, I'm going to be honest with you. You made catastrophic decisions. Your daughter could have died. I know. But I've been a detective for 15 years. I've seen people who hurt children deliberately. People who are cruel. You're not one of them. David looked up, surprised. You're a man who broke under impossible circumstances. That doesn't excuse what you did, but it explains it. Laura paused. The question now is, what happens next? Rachel Torres leaned forward. Detective, my client needs psychiatric evaluation and treatment, not just punishment. I agree, Laura said, but he also needs to be held accountable. David spoke quietly. What I need is for my daughters to be okay. That's all that matters. Laura stood. Mr. Bennett, you're going to be formally charged with child endangerment and medical neglect. Given your mental state and circumstances, the DA may be willing to consider treatment as part of your sentencing. But that's not my decision. Can I send them a message, Emily and Lily? Laura exchanged a look with Rachel, then nodded. What do you want to say? David's voice shook. Tell Emily, tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I love her more than anything in this world. And tell her this wasn't her fault. None of it. Tears streamed down his face. Tell her she was the bravest, strongest person I've ever known, and I'm so sorry I made her have to be. Laura wrote it down. I'll make sure she gets that. As they led David back to his cell, Laura stood in the hallway with Reyes. What do you think? Reyes asked. I think he's telling the truth. I think he's a broken man who made terrible choices. Laura sighed. But I also think Emily was right. This isn't just about him. It's about every person who saw that family struggling and looked away. So what do? We document everything, every missed opportunity, every system that failed, and we make sure the court sees the whole picture, not just the easy answer. Reyes nodded. Think it'll make a difference? Laura looked toward the exit where sunlight streamed through the windows. I don't know, but if we don't try, nothing will ever change. And somewhere in that statement was both the tragedy and the hope of the entire case. 3 days after David's arrest, Emily sat in Dr. Sarah Winters' office, a warm room with soft lighting, comfortable chairs, and shelves filled with books and art supplies. It was designed to feel safe, but Emily didn't feel safe. She felt lost. Dr. Winters sat across from her, hands folded gently in her lap. Emily, I'm glad you came to talk with me today. I know you've been through so much. Emily nodded but said nothing. She sat perfectly straight in her chair, hands folded in her lap, back not touching the cushion. Dr. Winters noticed. You know, you can relax here. You can sit however feels comfortable. Emily didn't move. I'm okay like this. Okay. Dr. Winters smiled gently. Can I ask you something? When did you start sitting that way? So carefully, so properly? Emily thought about it. I don't know. After Mama died, I guess. I wanted to be good. So people wouldn't get angry. Did people get angry often? No, but I thought if I was really good, maybe things would get better. Dr. Winters nodded slowly. Emily, do you know what I noticed when I first met you? Emily shook her head. You don't act like a 10-year-old. You act like someone much older, like you've been practicing how to be an adult. Emily looked down. I had to. Someone had to take care of Lily. That's what I mean, Dr. Winters said gently. You learned very early that the adults around you couldn't always help. So you became the adult. You practiced being mature, being responsible, being perfect, because you thought that's what would keep you safe. Emily's eyes filled with tears. But it didn't work. Lily still got sick, Daddy still left. Exactly, because you're not supposed to be able to fix everything. You're a child, and children are supposed to be protected, not protectors. But there was nobody else. I know. And that's the hardest part. Dr. Winters leaned forward slightly. Emily, I want you to understand something very important. You didn't fail. The adults around you failed. Emily looked up. Your father failed because he didn't ask for help when he needed it. Your neighbors failed because they didn't offer help when they saw it was needed. The systems meant to protect children failed because they didn't find you before things got so bad. Dr. Winters paused. But you? You did everything a child possibly could. You kept your sister alive. Then why do I feel like I did everything wrong? Because you've been carrying responsibility that was never yours to carry. And when you carry something that heavy for that long, you start to believe it's your fault when you can't hold it anymore. Emily was crying now, not the quiet, controlled tears she'd learned to cry. Real, deep sobs that came from somewhere she'd kept locked away for months. Dr. Winters moved to sit beside her, not touching, just present. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be a child who's scared and confused. I don't know how, Emily whispered between sobs. I don't know how to not be the one who takes care of everything. We'll figure it out together, one day at a time. After several minutes, Emily's crying slowed. She wiped her face with a tissue. Can I tell you something? Emily asked quietly. Of course. When the police officer found us, Officer Mitchell, I was so relieved. But I was also scared because I thought I'd done something wrong. Like I'd failed by letting someone see us. Emily looked at Dr. Winters. I thought I was supposed to keep us invisible until Daddy came back. Dr. Winters felt her chest tighten. Oh, sweetheart, you weren't supposed to be invisible. You were supposed to be seen, to be helped. But nobody saw us for so long, so I thought that's just how it was. I know. And that's what we need to change. Not you, but the world around you. Dr. Winters paused. Emily, there's going to be a hearing in a few months. A lot of people will talk about what happened. You might be asked if you want to say anything. You don't have to. But if you do, what would you want people to know? Emily thought for a long moment. I'd want them to know that I tried. That I wasn't asking for someone to save us. I just wanted someone to stop. To notice. To care. Dr. Winters wrote that down, knowing those words, when Emily was ready to speak them, would change everything. You know what I think? Dr. Winters said. What? I think you're one of the bravest people I've ever met. Not because you took care of your sister, though that was brave, but because you're sitting here now, letting yourself feel things you've been holding in for so long. Emily managed a small smile. It doesn't feel brave. It just feels hard. The bravest things usually do. As the session ended, Dr. Winters watched Emily walk out, still sitting a little too straight, still trying a little too hard to be good. But maybe, just maybe, starting to learn that she didn't have to be. 3 months later, the Millbrook Community Center was filled beyond capacity. Every seat was taken. People stood along the walls, crowded in doorways. News cameras lined the back of the room. This wasn't a trial. Not yet. It was a community hearing, called by Judge Patricia Lawson to determine what had happened, why it happened, and what should happen next. At the front table sat Judge Lawson, flanked by Margaret Hayes, Detective Laura Brennan, and Dr. Pemberton. To the side sat David Bennett with his public defender, Rachel Torres. He wore a clean shirt provided by the jail, but he still looked hollow, broken. A few rows back sat Emily, holding Lily's hand. Lily looked healthy now. Her cheeks had color, her eyes were bright, her breathing clear. But she stayed close to Emily, gripping tight. Judge Lawson tapped her gavel. The room fell silent. This hearing has been called to review the circumstances surrounding Emily and Lily Bennett. We're here to understand what happened and to determine the appropriate steps moving forward. She looked out at the packed room. I want to remind everyone, these are real children, and this is their real life. We will proceed with respect and dignity. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. First, I'd like to hear from Dr. Pemberton regarding Lily Bennett's medical condition. Dr. Pemberton stood and approached the microphone. He spoke clearly. Lily Bennett was admitted to Mercy Hospital with severe pneumonia, dehydration, malnutrition, and chemical burns to her esophagus. The immediate cause was a homemade substance administered by her father. The room stirred uncomfortably. However, Dr. Pemberton continued, his voice firm, My examination revealed that Lily's critical condition was not caused solely by that one incident. She had been suffering from chronic neglect for months, malnutrition, untreated infections, lack of basic care. He paused. This child did not get sick in one day. She got sick slowly over weeks and months while living in plain sight. This was not an accident. She was becoming invisible day after day. The silence was absolute. Several people in the audience looked down, uncomfortable. Next, Detective Brennan spoke. She described the investigation, the timeline, the missed opportunities. Our investigation found no evidence of malicious intent from David Bennett. He was experiencing severe depression and what appears to be a dissociative episode following his wife's death. She looked directly at the crowd. But our investigation also revealed something else. Multiple witnesses saw Emily and Lily Bennett over the course of weeks. Some people thought about stopping. Some people noticed something seemed wrong. But no one intervened. The room grew tense. Margaret Hayes stood. I've been a social worker for 23 years. I've seen deliberate harm. I've seen cruelty. This case is neither. She paused. This is a case of systemic collapse. A man who lost his wife, his job, his home, and had no support system. 2 children who became invisible while sitting in a public area. Her voice strengthened. We can charge David Bennett. We can punish him. But if we don't ask why this family fell through every safety net, then we've learned nothing. Judge Lawson nodded slowly. Before we continue, I have a question for everyone here. The room waited. How many of you, the judge said carefully, saw these children before they were rescued? Silence stretched. Then slowly hands began to rise. 1. Then another, then more. The judge's expression didn't change, but her voice was quiet. And how many of you stopped to ask if they were okay? Every hand went down. The silence that followed was crushing. Judge Lawson let it sit. I see. Well, it seems we have much to discuss. She looked at Emily. Emily Bennett, I understand you'd like to say something. You don't have to. But if you want to, we're ready to listen. Emily looked at Lily, who squeezed her hand and whispered, It's okay, Emmy. Emily stood slowly. She walked to the front of the room, her heart pounding. Emily stood at the microphone, small and quiet in front of the packed room. Every eye was on her. Cameras, strangers, her father who couldn't meet her gaze. She didn't cry, she didn't tremble. She just stood there, perfectly straight, hands at her sides, like she'd practiced this moment 1,000 times. Judge Lawson spoke gently. Take your time, Emily. Emily looked out at the crowd. Then she began. My name is Emily Bennett. I'm 10 years old. Her voice was steady, clear. And everyone keeps asking the same question. What happened to us? Who did this? The room was completely still. For a long time, I thought the answer was simple. My dad did it. He gave Lily something that hurt her. He left us alone, so it was his fault. She paused. But then I started thinking about everything else that happened. Emily's voice grew stronger. We didn't just end up in that rail car one day. We got there slowly. First we lost our house, then we lived in the car, then the shelter, then nowhere. She looked around the room. And all that time we were still here, in this town, walking past people, going to stores, sitting in that rail car where people walked by every single day. A woman in the 3rd row covered her mouth. My dad made a really big mistake, Emily continued. He tried to help Lily when he didn't know how. And then he left because I think his mind just broke. But he wasn't the only one who could have helped us. She gestured to the audience. How many of you saw us? How many of you walked past that rail car and thought, those girls look like they need help? But then you kept walking because you thought someone else would take care of it? The silence was deafening. I tried to take care of my sister because I thought that's what kids did when nobody else could. I sat up straight. I was polite. I didn't ask for anything. Because I thought if I was really, really good, someone would notice we needed help. Emily's voice softened but didn't break. But nobody did. Not until it was almost too late. She looked at her father. Dad, I'm still angry at you, and I'm still scared. But I know you weren't trying to hurt us, you were just lost. and nobody helped you find your way back." David sobbed openly, his shoulders shaking. Emily turned back to the crowd. "So when people ask who did this to us, I think the answer is a lot of people. Not because they were mean, but because they didn't stop." She paused, then delivered the line that would echo long after the hearing ended. "I wasn't asking for someone to save us. I just wanted someone to stop, to notice, to care." The room erupted, not in argument, but in something deeper: recognition, shame, understanding. Emily walked back to her seat. Lily threw her arms around her, and Emily finally let herself cry. Not the quiet, controlled tears she'd learned, but real, full sobs. Judge Lawson waited for the room to quiet. Then she spoke. "Thank you, Emily. That was incredibly brave." She looked out at the crowd. "I think we've heard enough to understand what happened here. This wasn't about one villain. It was about a community that looked away, a system that arrived too late, and a family that fell apart while everyone assumed someone else was paying attention." The judge's voice was firm. "We have a lot of work to do, not just in this case, but in making sure this never happens again." She looked at David. "Mr. Bennett, you will be held accountable for your actions. But the court also recognizes that you were failed by many, including yourself." Then she looked at the audience. "And the rest of you need to ask yourselves, what will you do differently next time? Because there will be a next time. There's always another family struggling in silence. The question is, will you stop?" Sarah Mitchell stood at the back of the room, tears streaming down her face. They were there, she thought one final time, and we all kept walking, until a 10-year-old girl had the courage to tell us the truth we didn't want to hear. 3 months later. The autumn leaves were falling in Millbrook, covering the streets in shades of gold and red. The town looked the same as it always had, quiet, orderly, safe. But something had changed. Something small, but significant. Emily and Lily lived with the Calloway family now, a temporary foster placement while the court worked through David's case. Mrs. Calloway was patient and kind, with graying hair and a gentle smile. Mr. Calloway worked at the library and brought home books for the girls every week. It wasn't perfect. Emily still woke up sometimes in the middle of the night, checking to make sure Lily was breathing. She still sat too straight at the dinner table. She still had trouble asking for things she needed. But she was learning. Dr. Winters saw her twice a week. They talked about trauma, about healing, about what it meant to be a child again. "You don't have to be perfect," Dr. Winters reminded her gently, session after session. "You just have to be you." It was harder than it sounded. Lily, on the other hand, was healing faster. She laughed now. She played. She attended preschool 3 days a week and had made friends. Sometimes Emily watched her sister run and play and felt both relief and sadness. Relief that Lily was okay. Sadness that she herself couldn't remember what it felt like to be that carefree. David was in a psychiatric treatment facility as part of his plea agreement. He'd pled guilty to child endangerment and medical neglect. The judge had sentenced him to 5 years of supervised probation with mandatory mental health treatment instead of prison time. It was controversial. Some people thought he deserved jail. Others thought the sentence was fair given the circumstances. Emily didn't know what she thought. She was allowed supervised visits with her father once a month. The first one had been awkward, painful. David had cried. Emily had stayed silent. Lily had asked, "Why did you leave us, Daddy?" David had no answer that made sense to a 4-year-old. But slowly, visit by visit, they were learning to talk again. Not as they were before. That family was gone. But as something new, something broken but trying to heal. At Millbrook Community Center, things had changed too. After the hearing, a group of citizens had formed the Millbrook Family Support Network. They created a system where volunteers checked in on families who might be struggling, not intrusively, but with genuine care. Mrs. Patterson, the neighbor who'd watched the girls briefly after Rebecca died, became one of the coordinators. "I should have done more," she said at the first meeting. "I knew they needed help, but I didn't know how to offer it. Now I do." The elementary school hired 2 additional social workers. They created a protocol for following up on students who stopped attending, not just filing reports, but actually visiting homes, offering resources. The police department started training officers in recognizing signs of family crisis. Sarah Mitchell became one of the trainers. "Look for the quiet ones," she told new recruits. "The families that don't make noise. The children who try too hard to be invisible. Those are the ones who need us most." At Riverside Park, someone had placed a small plaque near where the rail car used to be. The city had removed the rusted car, turning the area into a small community garden instead. The plaque read, "In memory of all the children who waited to be seen. May we never look away again." It wasn't a perfect solution. Some people still walked past families in crisis. Some systems still failed. Some children still fell through cracks. But now at least there were more people watching. More people willing to stop. More people who understood that someone must be taking care of it. Wasn't good enough anymore. One Saturday afternoon, Emily and Lily visited the garden with Mrs. Calloway. Lily ran ahead, chasing butterflies. Mrs. Calloway stayed back, giving Emily space. Emily stood in front of the plaque, reading it for the third time. She thought about all the people who'd walked past, all the chances to be seen, all the days of counting minutes, waiting for someone, anyone, to notice. And she thought about the people who finally did notice. Officer Mitchell, Dr. Pemberton, Margaret, Dr. Winters, even Judge Lawson. It hadn't been soon enough, but it had been something. Mrs. Calloway approached gently. "You okay, sweetheart?" Emily nodded. "Yeah, I think so. Ready to go?" "In a minute." Emily watched Lily play, free, happy, safe. And for the first time in a very long time, Emily felt something that almost felt like hope. Not because everything was fixed, but because she wasn't alone anymore. And neither was Lily. Some people had started watching. Some people had stopped walking past. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than before. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start with. 6 months later, Emily sat on a bench at Riverside Park, watching Lily play on the swings. The spring sun was warm on her face. Birds sang in the trees. Children laughed all around. It was the kind of ordinary, beautiful day that Emily had almost forgotten could exist. Lily pumped her legs, going higher and higher, her red hair flying behind her. "Emmy, look. Look how high I'm going." Emily smiled. "I see you, Lil. You're doing great." Mrs. Calloway sat beside Emily, holding 2 ice cream cones. She handed one to Emily. "Thought you might like this." "Thank you." Emily took it carefully, still not quite used to receiving things without having to earn them first. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Lily play. "You know," Mrs. Calloway said gently, "you don't have to watch her every single second. She's safe here." Emily nodded, but her eyes didn't leave her sister. Old habits were hard to break. "I know it's hard," Mrs. Calloway continued, "but you're allowed to relax. You're allowed to just be." Emily took a breath. She'd been working on this in therapy, learning to let go of the hypervigilance, the constant counting of exits, the need to be prepared for everything. For the first time, she let herself look away from Lily. She watched the other families in the park, parents pushing children on swings, a grandmother helping a toddler climb the slide, a father teaching his son to throw a ball. Normal, safe, present. And then Emily noticed something that made her chest tighten, but in a different way than before. A woman walking past saw a little boy sitting alone near the fountain, looking lost. She stopped. "Hey there, are you okay? Where's your grown-up?" The boy pointed toward the restrooms. "My dad's in there." The woman smiled. "Okay, I'll wait with you until he comes back, all right?" She sat down on the bench beside the boy, not leaving until his father emerged a minute later. Emily watched, transfixed. Someone had stopped. Someone had noticed. Someone had cared. A few minutes later, an elderly man dropped his grocery bags. A teenager immediately stopped to help him pick them up. A young mother struggling with a stroller got stuck on the curb. 2 people moved to help without being asked. Small moments, small kindnesses, people noticing, people stopping. Emily felt tears prick her eyes, not sad tears, but something else, something that felt almost like relief. "You okay?" Mrs. Calloway asked softly. "Yeah," Emily said, wiping her eyes. I was just noticing people are helping each other." Mrs. Calloway followed her gaze. "They are. And you know what? I think your story had something to do with that." Emily looked at her, confused. "After the hearing," Mrs. Calloway explained, "people in this town started paying attention differently, not perfectly, not always, but more than before. You changed something, Emily, by being brave enough to tell the truth." Emily didn't know what to say to that. Lily ran over, breathless and beaming. "Emmy, can we get ice cream?" Emily laughed. "You're holding ice cream right now, Lil." Lily looked down at the cone Mrs. Calloway had already given her, then giggled. "Oh yeah." She ran back to the swings, her laughter trailing behind her. Emily watched her go, and for the first time she didn't count how many seconds Lily was out of sight. She didn't scan for dangers. She didn't calculate escape routes. She just watched, present, calm. Mrs. Calloway noticed. "That's different," she said gently. "What is?" "You. You're not on alert right now." Emily realized it was true. Her shoulders weren't tense, her hands weren't clenched. Her breathing was steady. She was just sitting on a bench eating ice cream, watching her sister play, being a kid. "It feels weird," Emily admitted. "Good weird or bad weird?" Emily thought about it. "Good weird, I think." They sat together as the afternoon stretched on. The park filled with more families, more children, more laughter. And Emily noticed, really noticed, that this time people weren't just walking past each other. They were stopping. They were asking. They were caring. It wasn't perfect. The world hadn't been magically fixed, but it was different. Better. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the park, Emily thought about everything that had brought them here. The rail car, the hospital, the hearing, the long, hard months of healing, and she thought about that question everyone had asked. Who did this to her? The answer she knew now was complicated. It was her father, yes, but it was also everyone who'd looked away, everyone who'd assumed, everyone who'd kept walking. But it was also, finally, the people who'd stopped, who'd noticed, who'd cared enough to change. Emily looked at Lily one more time. Her sister was laughing with a new friend on the monkey bars, completely carefree, safe, seen, protected. And Emily realized, this time, nobody needed to scream for help, because this time, someone was watching, not just one person, but many, and that simple, powerful truth made all the difference. The end, final message. Sometimes the greatest danger isn't cruelty, it's the comfortable silence we hide behind while thinking, someone else will take care of it. This time, may we all choose to stop, to notice, to care, because the children who wait to be seen are counting on us.